We're in the Grand Parlour now. Old panelled woodwork, look. This room, dating from the 18th century, was the main living space in the house where the family spent time and received guests and visitors. It would have been an impressive room, making a statement about the occupant's wealth and status. Clues in the panelling. The oak panelling is not original to this room. Panels from a larger room have been cut to fit. In 1792, Henry Merton's bird demolished the derelict manor of East Hall, north of the Marsh Green, and may have reused the oak panelling when he refurbished Valence House. In the 17th century, full panelling such as this was reserved for the grandest rooms in a house. It was decorative and made the rooms warm and more attractive. The panelling would have been painted in the fashionable colours of the day. Favoured colours were stone or earthy browns to greens. Doors and skirting boards were painted dark brown to hide the dirt or marks. Paint analysis show that during the 19th century these panels were a sage green colour. A room with a view. These two windows were blocked up in 1929 when an extension was added to the building. They would have provided a fine view across the grounds to the moat and screen of trees beyond. As the main receiving room, this view showed the property to its best advantage, reinforcing the residents' wealth and standing in society. The smallest room in the house, and usually the panelling has been designed to incorporate a hidden cupboard behind the door, is a peat closet. A peat closet, an early toilet. The soiled peat was removed regularly and replaced with clean peat. Oh my god, that's disgusting. Well, they didn't have flushing toilets like us, did they? So can't judge really. Please do not touch me, thank you. Okay. The Dagenham Idol. 1,000 years older than Stonehenge, this wooden figure, discovered in Dagenham marshes, is one of the earliest known carvings of a human form to have been found in Europe. Carved from the wood of a Scots pine, this representation of a human figure was found in 1922 in marshland just south of Ribble Road in Dagenham. Dendrochronology, tree ring dating, has revealed that it was made about 2250 BC and belongs to the late Neolithic period. A gift to the gods. Little is known about the idol. Little is known about why the idol was made, but evidence that people inhabited this area over 4,000 years ago. Archaeologists believe that it was deliberately buried in the marshes as an offering to the gods to increase fertility of the land. Buried beside the idol was the skeleton of a deer. At the time, people believed that the gods had to be kept happy with gifts in order to prevent disaster. That is absolutely fascinating. Look at that. you're looking into the face of something that a human being made over 4,000 years ago and would have looked into, and then for so many years it laid resting in the ground. Wow. Built in Berlin in 1877, this Bechstein Grand Piano was purchased by the former Dagenham Borough librarian John Gerard O'Leary. In the 1930s and 40s, O'Leary purchased pianos for every library in Dagenham as he believed it was important to provide local people with access to music. Bechstein, literally one of the very best models of piano that you can get. If it's tuned, I should imagine it sounds absolutely beautiful. The carvings, very nice. Searching for clues. Archaeologists use various methods to gather information that provides clues to the past. Just pause to read any of the descriptions that you want to. And these are all the different things you look at through the microscope. Oh, that's clever. We're currently looking at sinew. Oh, how nice. Should we look at some more? One more, and we'll look at barley, I think. Yeah, barley, that'll do us. There we are. Barley seeds under the microscope. Gold coin of King Henry VII used to date building at Barking Abbey. peel back the layers of history on what we found. Loads of rubbish and lost property. Many items found by archaeologists are things that people from the past have thrown away or accidentally lost. Oh, hiya. Sorry. And we carry back on with our tour. I've been to the archives, found all the information I wanted on the Sicilies. So you've got copies of original records to look at when we see the Sicilies. So yeah. The deceased were either cremated or buried. Journey to the underworld. Cremation was practiced during the 1st and 2nd centuries. The remains of bones and ash were placed in containers called crematorium urns, often old kitchen jars. Graves were marked with wooden markers or stone tombstones. The deceased were accompanied by grave goods to assist the journey to the underworld. They included items such as food and drink, lamps to light the way, coins to pay the ferryman for a safe journey over the River Styx, and personal objects such as favourite jewellery. With the establishment of Christianity in the 3rd and 4th centuries, burial became popular. Bodies were buried in wooden coffins without grave goods. Rich families could afford lead or stone coffins. A cemetery with a stone coffin and many Roman pots was found at Marks Gate, Chadwell Heath. Roman cemeteries. In the Roman Empire, burial was only permitted outside a settlement. Cemeteries were along roads near communities or towns. Others in rural areas belonged to villa estates. A number of burial grounds lying close to the Thames marshes have been found in East Ham, Barking Hornchurch. The burials are likely to be of wealthy people from nearby villages. Roman Sarcophagus. This stone coffin may have formed part of the burial ground connected to the Roman villa in Eastbury area, AD 45 to AD 450. Found during the construction of 496 Ripple Road, Barking in 1932. Obviously for the kids to try on clothes and bits and pieces. And we're going to be seeing in a minute one of the things I most wanted to see. The foundation of Barking Abbey. The first abbey buildings were constructed of wood, with walls of wattle and daub foundations of reused Roman tile and stone. St Peter's on the Wall, Bradwell-on-Sea, Essex, built 660 to 662. This is one of the earliest surviving Saxon church buildings in England. The first Barking Abbey was founded in the year 666 AD by a priest named Erkenwald for his sister Ethelberga. He became Bishop of London. St Erkenwald is also a saint as well. He founded Barking for his sister and Chertsey Abbey for himself. It was a double house where monks and nuns lived in separate but identical buildings. The abbey buildings were constructed of wood walls of wattle and daub and foundations of reused Roman tile and stone. The founders of the abbey and their relatives lived in the patron house. Archaeology has revealed fragments of extremely rare coloured glass, silver coins and bone combs which show how affluent the occupants were. Erkenwald became Bishop of London and died while on a visit to Barking Abbey in 693. He was buried in Old St Paul's Cathedral. Soon after he was declared a saint and his shrine became an object of pilgrimage. Viking attack. In 871, Barking was attacked by the Vikings. The abbey was destroyed and the town became part of the Viking-controlled Danelaw territory. It is thought that the nuns fled to their City of London estate, which later became the parish of All Hallows Barking by the Tower, church which still exists today. Barking Abbey was rebuilt under royal patronage. The English regained control of the Danelaw in the 900s, and Barking Abbey was rebuilt as a single-sex Benedictine nunnery under the patronage of King Edgar, who reigned from 955 to 979. Barking Abbey became a royal foundation where the monarch had the right to choose each new abbess. And these are all the items that were found in the dig at Barking Abbey. Decorated bone comb, metal ring, a stone set brooch, a pin, toilet set, that's those there, girdle hanger, that's this here, a strap end, and a square-headed brooch. Strap end is there, and the square-ended brooch here. I've been waiting to see these things for a long time because, as you all know, I'm interested in Barking Abbey. A headless statue, figure holding two orbs topped with crosses and possibly an altar decoration. Head from a figure and a bead. A stylus, a pointed end was used to write. On wax tablets, the flat end was used to rub mistakes. Ink and vellum, or parchment, would have been reserved for the most important documents at the time. They were very expensive. 7th century bronze. It's fascinating. Loom weights. These were hung at the bottom of great standing looms to keep the yarn or the warp taut during weaving. And a thread picker. Ouch, that hurt. Influential and educated women. The second abbess, Hildilitha, held a very high regard as a lady of virtue and learning. Depiction of a 14th century abbess from the Literal Psalter, a medieval book detailing everyday life. Aldhelm, the abbot of Malmesbury, dedicated this book on virginity to her. His writing reveals that the nuns were highly educated in biblical studies, ancient law, history, grammar and spelling, and the nuns would often sit in judgment over cases in the town and things like that. They were much respected for their word and their decision. Following the abbey's establishment as a royal foundation, all the abbesses were appointed by the king. They came from noble and high status families. King Henry I and his successor, King Stephen, both made their wives abbesses. Henry II and John appointed their illegitimate daughters. Female relations of the king's major supporters were also appointed as abbess, such as Adelicia de Burgh, who was related to the powerful Northumbrian barons. More unusual was the appointment of Mary Becket by Henry II as an apology for killing her brother Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury. So he killed her brother, and then to make up for it, like the ecclesiastical version of guilt sweets, he made her abbess. You know, like when years ago when one of our parents or grandparents would smack us and then they felt they'd been unfair, so they'd give us guilt sweets. Royal visitors. William the Conqueror spent the latter part of December 1066 and New Year 1067 at Barking Abbey, while the White Tower of London was built. He received and surrendered the great Saxon earls of Mercia, Northumbria and other Saxon lords. William was the first of many monarchs to stay at the abbey. The last would aptly be Henry VIII, its destroyer. Barking Abbey, look. These are pieces of carved stone, all came from the buildings within Barking Abbey complex. They date to the 12th century. Most of the abbey was rebuilt and illustrate the types of decoration that were used within the buildings. Take a picture of that first, then the stones. Think of all the years of prayer and chanting and song, incense and everything that these pieces would have seen. Painted wall plaster, look. As I said in St Margaret's Curfew Tower the other day, Barking Church and Abbey would have been very, very highly coloured and painted. Spiritual offerings. Belief in the power of prayer was extreme in the medieval period. Barking Abbey played an important religious role in supporting the king and country. The king took his position, his land and his crown from God, and granted land and status to the abbess as his subject. In return, the abbess and nuns supported the king by praying for him and the royal family. Hospital Chapel of St Mary and St Thomas, Canterbury, Ilford. St Thomas of Canterbury at Ilford, that'll be another one I'll be visiting eventually. A page from the Barking Abbey hymnal. This book contained the words and music for the abbey's hymns. A page from the Barking Abbey Ordinal. The Ordinal detailed the abbey's religious festivals and celebrations. See, I wanted to get all these done, these explores, within a few days of each other, because they all tie in so well with each other. You see Barking Abbey, Valence House here, Eastbury, all of which was originally owned by the abbess and the abbey at Barking. How about and this is the model. You know, we saw the bronze, didn't we, outside St Margaret's Church. This is the model, the big model for it. It shows you what the Great Abbey would have been like. This is St Margaret's Church we're looking at now. The Curfew Tower through which we walk and which we explored yesterday. On St Clement's Day. I'm not sure when these videos will be going on, but we explored that on St Clement's Day, which turned out to be a very, very good day for exploring. Because we got the Curfew Tower done, we got the Church of St Clement East Cheap done. So yeah, as I said the other day, I do say several times, it originally had 3 curfew gates, but it only has the one now. Lord of the land. The abbess was given the title Lord of the Manor. In this role, she controlled the lives of most of the inhabitants of Barking and Dagenham. The rules of the manor enforced social hierarchy of lords and peasants for 500 years. Held in the abbey's buildings, the manorial court controlled transfers of land and dealt with the maintenance of roads and bridges in the area. The marketplace was regulated by the abbess, who ensured the correct weights and measures were used. The remains of 2 pillars were also found by archaeologists at the site of the abbey. These are the earliest known pillories in Europe. Sorry, not pillars, pillories in Europe. They were used to punish people who had committed minor crimes. With their heads and arms locked in the pillory, the criminals were often pelted with rotting vegetables by passers-by. The abbess had the total control over her land and the roads, ditches, bridges, woods, windmills, and watercourses within it. The river roading was of vital importance to the people of Barking for transporting goods. The abbess was responsible for maintaining the town, the quay, dredging the river, and maintaining many miles of Thames river walls to protect grazing marshes from flooding. She also controlled Barking watermill. On the river roading, strict rules prevented anyone else in the manor from grinding grain into flour, even by hand. All grain had to pass through the mill on the town quay, making it a focal point for the town and also making, this is my bit, a good fat profit for the abbey. What became of Barking Abbey? In 1536, Henry VIII began the dissolution of the monasteries, closing religious houses and seizing property. Barking Abbey survived longer than many because the king's representative was a close friend of the last abbess, Dorothy Barley. It was eventually surrendered in November 1539 and the nuns retired with large pensions. Demolition work began in 1540 and was complete 18 months later. Detailed accounts show that the abbey was almost completely destroyed. The demolition work began in 1540 and was completed 18 months later. The finest stone was transported across the Thames for use in the King's Manor House at Dartford. Lead from the roof were used to repair the Royal Palace at Greenwich. Small halves used to melt lead from the window surrounds have been discovered across the abbey site. The only buildings to survive were St Margaret's Church and 2 gateways. One was the Curfew Tower, which survives today as the entrance to St Margaret's Church. The other was the smaller North Street Gate, now demolished. By the end of the Victorian period, most of the abbey site had been built on. In 1910, the new road to the abbey was constructed through part of the site. The remains of the main abbey buildings were excavated in the following year and laid out as a small park. Over the following decades, land enclosed by Abbey Road and the Broadway was cleared. Among the buildings demolished were the Elizabethan Courthouse, the houses in Back Lane, and Master's Match Factory. Eventually, in the 1970s, the cleared land became part of the central area open space and conservation area. So, that's Barking Abbey that I wanted to show you, and I hope you've all enjoyed this. So, join me for part 2. Mary Beckett, a novice nun from 1120 to 1175. The sister of St Thomas Becket. I've told you before, there's some really famous ones connected to the abbey. Right, I hope you've all found this interesting and join me for the next part, which I think is part 3,